On a Friday night, clutching a bouquet of lilies, Ethan rushed home to Denver, full of anticipation of a surprise for Madison. But instead of a warm welcome, he found an empty house and his wife's sharp voice on the phone. "I'm not coming home tonight." The mystery of her night reveals a betrayal that pushes Ethan to take an intricate revenge that will turn their lives upside down. Ethan Clark gripped the steering wheel of his black pickup truck as he navigated the bustling streets of Denver, Colorado. The late Friday afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the city, and in his passenger seat sat a bouquet of white lilies, Madison's favorite flowers. At 35, Ethan was a sales manager at a thriving tech firm, and after weeks of grueling night shifts coordinating with overseas partners in Asia, he'd finally caught a break. Tonight was going to be special. He hadn't told Madison, his 32-year-old wife, that he'd be home early. A surprise, he thought, will be the perfect way to rekindle the spark they'd both missed lately. Madison, a sharp and ambitious marketing specialist, had been dropping hints about how much she hated his long hours. Ethan couldn't blame her. Their cozy suburban home had felt more like a pit stop than a sanctuary these past few months. So, on his way back from the office, he'd swung by a local store, picking up the lilies and a bottle of California Pinot Noir, her go-to for a relaxing evening. He pictured her face lighting up when he walked through the door, the two of them sinking into the couch with a glass of wine, the stress of work melting away. It was a simple plan, but one that filled him with a quiet, eager anticipation. The drive home flew by in a blur of daydreams. Ethan pulled into their driveway, humming to himself, but his tune faltered the moment he noticed something off. Madison's silver SUV wasn't there. He frowned, glancing at his watch, 6:45 p.m. She should have been home by now. Maybe she's running late with a client, he muttered, trying to brush off the unease creeping up his spine. Grabbing the flowers and wine, he stepped out of the truck and headed inside. The house was dark and silent, the kind of stillness that felt heavy rather than peaceful. Ethan set the bouquet on the kitchen counter and pulled out his phone. He dialed Madison's number, his thumb hovering over the call button for a second before pressing it. The line rang once, twice, then a third time. Finally, she picked up. "Hey, Ethan." Her voice came through, clipped and distant, like she was distracted. "Hey, mess. Where are you?" "I got off early, and I'm not coming home tonight," she cut in. "Work stuff. Don't wait up, okay?" Ethan blinked, the words hitting him like a cold splash of water. "Wait, what? You're not coming home at all?" "Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Just don't worry about it." The line went dead before he could respond. He stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, the dial tone buzzing faintly. The lilies sat untouched on the counter, their sweet scent now mocking his excitement. Something wasn't right. Madison had always been upfront about late nights at the office. She'd text him about a meeting or a deadline. This felt different. His chest tightened as he replayed her tone in his mind. Cool, detached, almost dismissive. Trying to shake it off, Ethan poured himself a glass of the Pinot Noir and sank into a chair at the kitchen table. "She's just busy," he told himself. "It's fine." But the doubt gnawed at him. He scrolled through their recent texts. Nothing unusual, just the usual banter and quick check-ins. Yet the empty house seemed to whisper otherwise. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway. Peering out the window, he saw Madison's SUV pulling in. She stepped out, her dark hair tied back, her expression calm. Too calm, like nothing had happened. She walked inside, tossing her keys onto the counter with a casual morning before heading straight for the bathroom. "No explanation, no apology." Just nothing. Ethan's jaw tightened. He waited until she emerged, wrapped in a towel, her damp hair clinging to her shoulders. She barely glanced at him as she moved toward the coffee maker. "Madison," he said, his voice steady but firm. "Where were you last night?" She sighed, not turning around. "I told you, Ethan. Work. Can we not do this right now?" "Work," he repeated, crossing his arms. "All night? You didn't even text me." She finally faced him, her hazel eyes narrowing slightly. "I was swamped, okay? I didn't have time to check in. It's not a big deal." But it was a big deal to Ethan. He'd seen her car keys on the counter, and on a hunch, he'd checked her SUV earlier that morning while she was in the shower. In the glove compartment, tucked beneath a stack of receipts, he'd found an open pack of condoms. His stomach had dropped. They hadn't used anything like that in years, not since they'd agreed they didn't need to. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the pack, and set it on the table between them. "Then what's this?" he asked, his voice low but edged with something sharp. Madison froze, her hand hovering over the coffee pot. For a moment, she didn't say anything, her gaze locked on the small, incriminating package. Then she straightened, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Ethan," she started, her tone softening, "let's not make this a thing. I can explain." His heart pounded, but he kept his face neutral. "I'm listening," he said, leaning back in his chair. Inside, though, a storm was brewing, one he wasn't sure he could contain. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, the pack of condoms resting between him and Madison like an unspoken accusation. The morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the white lilies he'd bought the night before, now wilting slightly, their petals drooping in silent defeat. Madison stood by the coffee maker, her back stiff, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter. The silence stretched thin, taut as a wire, until she finally turned to face him. "Okay, Ethan," she said, her voice quieter now, almost resigned. "You want the truth? Fine. I wasn't at the office last night." He leaned forward, his hazel eyes locked on hers. "Go on." She took a deep breath, crossing her arms as if to shield herself. "I was with Ryan. You know, my coworker from marketing team. He's been covering for me at work. I messed up a big campaign pitch a few weeks ago, missed some deadlines, and he smoothed it over with the boss. Kept me from getting written up." Ethan's brow furrowed. And he wanted something in return," she admitted, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I went to his place last night. It was a one-time thing, Ethan. A stupid mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen, and I didn't enjoy it. I needed his help." The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut, but he kept his expression steady, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "So, you're telling me you spent the night with him," he said slowly, "because he bailed you out at work?" Madison nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Yeah, I know how it sounds. But I love you, Ethan. This wasn't about us. It was about keeping my job. You know how much I've put into this career. How much we've both put into our future." He almost laughed, a bitter sound catching in his throat. "Our future? Mads, you think this doesn't affect us?" "It doesn't have to," she said quickly, stepping closer. "I'm telling you now because I don't want secrets. It's over. Done. I swear it won't happen again." Ethan stared at her, searching her face for something, regret, shame, anything real. But all he saw was a flicker of defiance, a hint that she didn't fully grasp the weight of what she'd done. He thought about the condoms, the cold way she'd brushed him off on the phone. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice, and it burned. He pushed back his chair and stood, running a hand through his short brown hair. "I need some air," he muttered, grabbing his keys from the counter. "Ethan, wait." Madison reached for him, but he stepped past her, his voice firm. "We'll talk later. I can't right now." Outside, the crisp Denver air hit him like a wake-up call. He climbed into his truck and drove, no destination in mind, just needing to move. His thoughts churned, anger, hurt, disbelief crashing together. Madison had always been driven, fiercely independent. It's what he'd loved about her when they met 5 years ago at a tech conference in Boulder. They'd built a life together, good jobs, a nice house, plans for more. And now he wasn't sure what they had left. After an hour of aimless driving, Ethan pulled into a quiet park near their neighborhood. He sat on a bench, watching joggers pass by, and replayed her confession. Ryan. He'd met the guy once at a company barbecue. Tall, slick, the kind of person who always had a charming smile ready. Ethan hadn't thought much of him then, but now the image twisted in his mind. What kind of man leveraged a favor into something like that? And what kind of wife said yes? His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Madison. "I'm sorry, Ethan. Can we please work through this?" He stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the reply button, but he didn't type anything. Instead, he shoved the phone back into his jacket. Sorry didn't fix this. Words didn't erase the night she'd spent somewhere else. By the time he returned home, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Madison was on the couch, a glass of wine in her hand, the bottle he'd bought for their night together. She looked up as he walked in, her eyes red-rimmed but steady. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said softly. "I messed up, okay? But I'm here now. I want us to be okay." Ethan set his keys down, his voice calm but distant. "I hear you, Mads. I just need time to think." She nodded, relief flickering across her face. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." But as he headed upstairs to their bedroom, Ethan wasn't sure waiting would change anything. The trust they'd built over years felt fractured, and he couldn't unsee the cracks. Lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, an idea began to form. Not out of spite, but out of a need for clarity. He wouldn't lash out. He wouldn't yell. He'd find a way to let the truth play out, to see if Madison and Ryan could face the consequences of their choices. The next morning, over coffee, he smiled at her. A small, careful smile. "Let's put this behind us," he said, his tone deliberately light. "Start fresh, like you said." Madison's face brightened, and she squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Ethan. I knew you'd understand." He nodded, sipping his coffee, but inside, his mind was already turning. Understanding wasn't the same as forgetting, and he wasn't ready to let this go. Not yet. Ethan leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping his coffee as Madison bustled around, grabbing her bag for work. It was Monday morning, and the Denver air outside carried a crisp chill, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in his mind. For 2 days, he'd played the part of the forgiving husband, smiling, nodding, letting her think they were moving past her confession. But inside, he was anything but at peace. Madison's words from Saturday echoed relentlessly. It was a one-time thing. I needed his help. Trust was shattered, and no amount of apologies could glue it back together. Still, he wasn't about to let anger dictate his next move. If there was going to be a reckoning, it would be smart, not reckless. "See you tonight?" Madison asked, pausing at the door with a hesitant smile. "Yeah," Ethan replied, keeping his tone even. "Have a good day, Mads." She nodded, relief softening her features, and then she was gone, her SUV pulling out of the driveway. The moment the sound of her engine faded, Ethan set his mug down and got to work. He started with a call to his boss, Greg, at the tech firm. "Hey, man," Ethan said, injecting a casual weariness into his voice. "Any chance I could take a short trip out of town? Maybe Phoenix? I could use a breather." Greg chuckled on the other end. "You, Mr. Workaholic? What's gotten into you?" "Just need a change of pace," Ethan said with a faint laugh. "Been a rough few weeks." "Fair enough. I'll set you up with a client meeting down there. Leave Wednesday, back by Friday." "Sound good." "Perfect. Thanks, Greg." Hanging up, Ethan felt the first piece of his plan click into place. The business trip would give him an alibi, distance from Denver while things unfolded. Madison wouldn't suspect a thing. Next, he opened his laptop and started digging. After a quick search, he found what he was looking for, a local improv group in Denver that specialized in custom performances. He sent them an email, outlining a vague but intriguing request. "Need a few actors for a personal project. Discreet, creative, nothing illegal. Can we meet?" Within an hour, he had a reply. A guy named Caleb, the group's leader, suggesting a coffee shop downtown. That afternoon, Ethan sat across from Caleb in a bustling cafe, the hum of conversation masking their discussion. Caleb was young, maybe late 20s, with a scruffy beard and a sharp grin. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "what's this project of yours?" Ethan kept it simple. "My wife's been less than honest. I want to shake things up, let her see her own mess without me lifting a finger. No confrontations, just some well-timed nudges from strangers." Caleb raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Like a social experiment?" "Exactly," Ethan said, tapping his fingers on the table. "She goes to Brew and Bean every morning before work. I want your people there, dropping subtle hints about her generosity with a coworker. Nothing crude, just enough to rattle her." Caleb grinned wider. "I like it. Subtle chaos. We can do that. What's the coworker's name?" "Ryan," Ethan said, his jaw tightening slightly. "But keep it vague. No specifics." "Got it. We'll improvise. 3 encounters, spread over a few days. That work?" "Perfect," Ethan said, sliding an envelope of cash across the table. "Half now, half when it's done." By Tuesday evening, the plan was set. Ethan packed a small bag for his Phoenix trip, keeping up the charade at home. Madison seemed lighter, chattering about a new project at work over dinner. "Things are finally calming down," she said, pouring them both a glass of water. "I think we're good now, right?" Ethan smiled, nodding. Mess. We're good." But his mind was elsewhere, picturing her reaction when the first nudge hit. Wednesday morning, he kissed her goodbye and drove to the airport, boarding a short flight to Phoenix. By noon, he was in a client meeting, his phone on silent. Meanwhile, back in Denver, the improv team went to work. At Brew and Bean, Madison stood in line for her usual latte when a young woman in a business suit, one of Caleb's actors, brushed past her. pausing with a curious glance. "Hey, aren't you Madison?" the woman asked, her tone bright but pointed. "I've heard you're super generous with your coworkers." "That's so cool." Madison blinked, caught off guard. Do I know you?" "Oh no, just heard about you," the woman said with a quick smile, then turned and left, blending into the crowd. Madison frowned, grabbing her coffee with a shaky hand. "Weird," she muttered, brushing it off as she headed to her office. Ethan got the text from Caleb later that day. "First one's done." She looked confused, but didn't push it. "On track for tomorrow." He smirked, pocketing his phone. It was a small start, but it felt right, like the first ripple in a pond that would soon grow into waves. That night, in his Phoenix hotel room, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't out for revenge, not the messy, shouting kind. He wanted Madison to feel the weight of her choices, to see her carefully built world wobble. And Ryan? If the rumors reached him, he'd squirm too. Ethan didn't need to throw punches or wreck lives. He'd let the truth do the heavy lifting, one subtle nudge at a time. Ethan sat in his Phoenix hotel room, the faint hum of the air conditioner filling the silence as he scrolled through his phone. It was Thursday evening, and the Denver improv team had been busy. Caleb's latest text had come an hour ago. Day 2 done. She's rattled, kept looking around like she expected someone to jump out. Third one's tomorrow. Ethan set the phone down, a quiet satisfaction settling in his chest. He wasn't there to see Madison's reactions, but he could imagine them. Her furrowed brow, the nervous sip of her latte, the way she tried to shrug it off. The plan was working, and he hadn't even had to raise his voice. Back in Denver, Madison's week had taken a sharp turn. Wednesday's odd encounter at Brew and Bean had been easy enough to dismiss. A random weirdo, she told herself. But Thursday morning brought a second surprise. As she waited for her coffee, a man in a gray hoodie, another of Caleb's actors, sidled up beside her, glancing her way with a knowing smile. "Madison, right?" he said, his tone casual but edged with something sharp. Words going around, you're the type who really goes the extra mile for your team. Impressive. She turned, her heart skipping a beat. "Excuse me? Who are you?" "Just someone who hears things," he replied, tipping his head before slipping out the door. Madison stood frozen, the barista's call for her order barely registering. 2 strangers in 2 days, both with cryptic comments about her generosity. It wasn't a coincidence. Her mind raced. Had someone seen her leave Ryan's place? Was this some cruel prank? She grabbed her latte and hurried to her car, her hands trembling as she dialed Ethan. He picked up on the 3rd ring, his voice calm against the faint background noise of a busy office. "Hey, Mess. What's up?" "Ethan," she started, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Something weird's happening. People, strangers, are saying things to me. About work, about, I don't know, helping coworkers. It's freaking me out." He paused, letting the line crackle for a moment. "What do you mean, strangers?" "I don't know," she snapped, her voice rising. "Yesterday some woman at the cafe acted like she knew me, and today this guy said I go the extra mile. It's like they're hinting at something. Did you tell anyone about what I told you?" "Me?" Ethan's tone sharpened, feigning offense. "Mads, I'm in Phoenix, neck deep in meetings. You think I got time to gossip? You said we'd put it behind us, remember?" She hesitated, guilt creeping in. "Yeah, I know. I don't get it. Sounds like you're stressed," he said, softening his voice. "Maybe it's nothing. People say weird stuff all the time." "Maybe," she muttered, unconvinced. "Okay, sorry. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, Mads," he said, hanging up with a faint smirk. Friday morning dawned gray and cold in Denver. Madison dragged herself to Brew and Bean, her nerves frayed. She'd barely slept, replaying the encounters in her head. She told herself it was paranoia, stress from work, guilt over Ryan, but doubt gnawed at her. As she picked up her coffee, a young woman in a scarf, actor number 3, brushed past, pausing with a bright smile. "Oh, you're Madison. I've heard you're a real team player. That's so inspiring," the woman chirped, then vanished into the crowd. Madison's cup slipped, splashing coffee on her hand. She cursed under her breath, her pulse racing. This wasn't random. Someone knew. She stormed out of the cafe, her mind spinning, and headed to the office, determined to get through the day. But the storm was far from over. At noon, a delivery guy strode into her open-plan office, a massive bouquet of red roses in his arms. "Delivery from Madison," he called, his voice cutting through the hum of keyboards and chatter. Heads turned, eyes widening as he set the flowers on her desk. Attached was a card. To Madison, thanks for the support. Ryan. The room went quiet, then erupted in whispers. Madison's face flushed as she snatched the card, her voice shaking. I didn't order this. Who sent it? The delivery guy shrugged. Just doing my job, ma'am, he said, backing away. Her coworker, Lisa, leaned over with a teasing grin. Ryan, huh? What's that about? It's nothing, Madison snapped, shoving the flowers under her desk. But the damage was done. The whispers grew louder, eyes darting her way. She felt exposed, cornered. By 2 p.m., she couldn't take it anymore. She marched to Ryan's cubicle, her hands clenched. Did you send those flowers? She hissed, keeping her voice low. Ryan looked up, startled. What flowers? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, she said, her eyes blazing. People are talking, Ryan. Someone knows. His face paled. Madison, I swear I didn't say anything. Why would I? We'd both be toast if this got out. She stared at him, searching for a lie, but found only panic. Then who's doing this? She muttered, turning away as dread settled in her stomach. The breaking point came at 3 p.m. Her boss, Mr. Hargrove, a stern man with a no-nonsense reputation, called her and Ryan into his office. The bouquet sat on his desk. Someone had tipped him off. Care to explain this? He asked, tapping the card. It's a misunderstanding, Madison stammered. A bad joke. Doesn't look like a joke, Hargrove said, his gaze hard. We have rules here. Personal relationships between staff are a breach of policy. You know that. Sir, it's not. Ryan started, but Madison cut in, her voice cracking. Okay, fine. I made a mistake with Ryan. One night. I'm sorry. Can we just drop this? Hargrove's jaw tightened. You're both suspended, effective immediately. I'll need to review this with HR. Go home. Now. Madison grabbed her bag and stormed out, tears stinging her eyes as coworkers watched in stunned silence. Ryan followed, muttering apologies she didn't hear. The office buzzed behind them, the scandal spreading like wildfire. By the time she reached her car, her phone was lighting up with texts. Lisa, her team, even her assistant. She ignored them all, her hands shaking as she drove home, the weight of her choices crashing down. In Phoenix, Ethan's phone buzzed with a final update from Caleb. Mission complete. Flowers were the clincher. She's a mess. Payments all set. Ethan wired the rest of the cash, then leaned back in his chair. He hadn't wanted to destroy her, just to let her feel the consequences. And now she had. Ethan stepped off the plane in Denver on Friday evening, the cool mountain air greeting him as he made his way to the parking lot. His phone had been silent since Caleb's last update. No calls, no frantic texts from Madison. He wasn't surprised. After the chaos he'd orchestrated, she'd likely been too overwhelmed to reach out. As he drove home, the city lights blurred past, and a strange calm settled over him. He'd set out to expose the truth, not to destroy her, and now the pieces had fallen where they would. Whatever came next, he'd face it head-on. Pulling into the driveway, he noticed Madison's SUV parked crookedly, as if she'd rushed inside. The house was dark, except for a faint glow from the living room. Ethan grabbed his bag and stepped through the front door, the silence thick and heavy. Madison sat on the couch, her knees pulled up, a half-empty glass of wine on the table beside her, the same bottle he'd brought home a week ago. Her eyes were red, her face drawn, and when she looked up at him, there was no warmth, only a mix of exhaustion and accusation. You're back, she said, her voice flat. Yeah, Ethan replied, setting his bag down. How's your day been? She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. My day? Oh, it's been great, Ethan. Suspended from work, humiliated in front of everyone, all because of some stupid flowers and rumors. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? He raised an eyebrow, keeping his tone steady. What are you saying, Mads? Don't play dumb, she snapped, standing up. This whole week, those creepy strangers, the delivery, it's too convenient. You did this, didn't you? Ethan met her gaze, unflinching. I didn't send any flowers. I've been in Phoenix, working. You can check with my boss if you want. She faltered, doubt flickering in her eyes, but her anger surged back. Then how? How did this happen right after I told you about Ryan? Maybe, he said slowly, it's what happens when you make choices like that. Things have a way of catching up. Madison's hands clenched into fists, but she didn't argue. She sank back onto the couch, running a hand through her tangled hair. I'm done, Ethan. They're reviewing it with HR, but I know what's coming. Ryan, too. We're both out. 5 years at that company gone. He nodded, leaning against the wall. Sounds rough. Rough? Her voice cracked. It's my career, and you're just standing there like it's nothing. It's not nothing, he said quietly. But it's not my mess, Mads. You made a call that night with Ryan. I didn't push you into it. She stared at him, tears welling up, but she didn't cry. Instead, she took a shaky breath and looked away. So what now? You're going to lord this over me? Punish me forever? No, Ethan said, stepping closer. I'm not punishing you. I'm leaving. Her head snapped up. What? I can't do this, he continued, his voice calm but firm. I try to see past it, but I don't trust you anymore. I don't trust us. I've already talked to a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. Madison's face crumpled, but she didn't protest. Not yet. Ethan pulled a folder from his bag and set it on the table. I'm being fair. We sell the house, split the money 60-40. I take the bigger share because I've been covering most of the mortgage. You can keep your car, your stuff. I just want out. Ethan, wait, she said, her voice trembling. We can fix this. I messed up, I know, but we got a life here. Please. He shook his head. A life needs trust, Mads. And that's gone. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it to move on. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and quiet tension. Madison moved out to a friend's place while the house went on the market. Ethan stayed, packing up his life with methodical care. The sale closed quickly. A young couple bought it, eager to start their own story in the space he and Madison had once filled with dreams. The money was divided as agreed, and the divorce finalized without a fight. Madison didn't push back, perhaps too drained to argue, or maybe realizing she'd lost more than just a marriage. Word got around about her suspension. The company, strict about its ethics policy, let her and Ryan go after a brief investigation. Whispers followed them, colleagues, industry contacts, even LinkedIn posts hinting at the scandal. Madison took a lower-paying job at a small firm outside Denver. Her once bright career dimmed. Ryan fared worse, bouncing between temp gigs, his slick charm no match for a tarnished reputation. Ethan, meanwhile, requested a transfer through his company. By late spring, he was unpacking boxes in a sunny condo in San Diego, the ocean breeze a welcome change from Denver's sharp chill. His new role kept him busy, client meetings, strategy sessions, a fresh slate. Nights were quieter, though, and sometimes he'd sit on his balcony, a beer in hand, staring at the waves. He didn't hate Madison, not really. Part of him missed the woman she'd been before that night with Ryan. The laughs, the plans, the way she'd challenge him. But that was a memory now, not a future. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos. A shot from their honeymoon in Seattle caught his eye, both of them grinning on a ferry, the wind in their hair. He lingered on it, a pang of regret tugging at him. Then he swiped it away, locking the screen. Trust the foundation, he murmured to himself, echoing a thought he'd had 100 times since that fateful Friday. Can't build anything without it. He stood, stretching, and stepped inside. The past was done. Madison and Ryan had faced their consequences, and he'd walked away with his dignity intact. It wasn't revenge that drove him. It was justice, quiet and clean. And now, in this new city, with the sound of the ocean in the distance, Ethan felt something he hadn't in months, a chance to start again.